Welcome to the Pure Property Podcast. Whether you are considering buying your first investment property or reaching property mogul status, we dissect the fundamentals through to large-scale property development and everything in between.
There it is at guitar riff, Phil Tarrant. I am the co-host of the Pure Property Podcast with Paul Glossop. Uncut, uncensored, unnecessary. Particularly my esteemed co-host. How many episodes have we done on this now, Paul Glossop? Founder of Pure Property Investment. I know you always get upset. Very upset when I don't use your titles and remind everyone how important you are.
Thank you, Philip. Mate, I don't know. I think we're getting close to, probably not necessarily at a baker's dozen yet, but we'll get there by the end of the year, I reckon.
Yeah. And have we stayed true to our initial thesis?
I mean, I think so, and that's why I like today. I'll scrape the bottom, but but usually I try to find some pretty intelligent investors. But ideally, trying to find people with different stories who give our. I mean, the intention really has always been to say, well, how can we do something a bit different? Which realistically is not to talk about fundamentals and talk about cycles. And whilst all these things do happen, and we do go through them within these stories, the intention here is to say, hey, look, we want to bring people on to this podcast who have actually walked the walk, who have actually talked the talk and have a story that is legitimate and have a story of trials, tribulations, but overall showing exactly what good fundamental property investment can do over a prolonged period of time and what people can expect they can achieve if they follow these sequences.
Absolutely. And you're tuning into this on the Property Investment Podcast Network, and welcome to all those people tuning in on the marvels that is the video, internet, and the social media. And a lot of conversation. I catch up with Paul quite often and regularly. We've had some great guests on this podcast over the last couple of months. I see that we're soon running out of those great guests, so to echo your sentiments there, but it's probably the appropriate time for me to introduce Lena Lindley, who's a senior buyer's agent at Pure Property Investment. I hear, because, you know, I'm being very connected in and around property, Lena, that you actually do all the work over at Pure Property Investment. This is what I hear. This is what I hear.
Well,
I don't know. This is your chance to
hearsay.
It's, you know, it's 95% true. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
You actually care about property. You actually.
We all love property.
Yeah.
Every single one of us.
Yeah.
We love it. All we do is talk about property every day, every minute. It's awesome. It's an amazing environment. I've been working with Paul for 8 years. 8 long years, but we all love property. We're all investors, big fans, huge.
Yeah. So I'm big on disclosures
Yes.
and transparency. So I know you. I've known you for well over a decade.
I was on your podcast about 10 years ago.
You were, and I think you've bought some property for my business partner Alex as well over the years.
Yes.
So. Never bought anything from me. I don't use Pure Property Investment. There is much better organisations out there that I can dial into. No, I do a lot of it myself these days.
He does it very poorly.
I do it very poorly.
He does still ask me questions before he signs dotted lines. I say, don't do it. He's like, I already did it.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
I get free advice these days.
The
best sort of advice is free advice, right?
You know,
Sure. Well, maybe we can talk about that. But you should be super proud. I've known you you working inside of the property investment space as a friend, and what you've been able to manoeuvre your career into, and now being a very highly capable and talented professional inside of property investment. That's a 10 out of 10. You got to be pretty stoked with that.
It's been an awesome journey, and definitely difficult at the beginning, but yeah, time again. We talk about time in the market. That is, we were very sensible, very intentional with what we did. We invested. We bought $2 million worth of assets over a 5-year period, and we waited. And with our intention to always have $100,000 in income in retirement, or when we decided to retire, and it's 10, 12 years on now. And the investments have doubled in value. And if we stopped today, we could sell and we'd have $2 million in cash, which, you know, you can take from that as you want, but or do with that what we wanted to. But so we've sort of chosen a different journey now. But that was the intention 10 years ago. 12 years ago we started, and we probably finished about 6 years ago. But that was the intention. Time in the market. That's it.
It's
you
not
implement
hard,
a
is
plan.
it?
It is the plan that everyone wants. You just have to implement it. And we did it in 5 years. It was hard. We invested 6 properties in 5 years. Yes, savings. There was sacrifice. Yeah,
all the
lots
rest
of lots of sleepless nights. Yes. Moving money around, but here we are, and it's so simple.
Yeah,
so simple.
It's simple, but really, really hard to execute, right? And I always say that around property investment. No doubt, Paul would echo these sentiments. Is that there's no secret in what you need to do, right?
No.
You got to buy some really, really good assets and hold on to them for a really long time.
Yep.
You know, and be ready to ride cycles. Might be up, might be down, might be left, right. But if you hold, it's easy, right? The hard bit is actually holding, right? And doing it that way. So it's good to see you guys have done so well. Who is you guys, by the way? I keep referring to you
My
guys.
wife and I.
Yes,
My
okay.
wife and I.
Who I also know quite well.
Yeah. She's a good
And hello, because no doubt you're probably listening to
Yes.
this in the car and giving Lena a hard time about it, which you should absolutely be doing. But I get the sense that original number probably ain't the number that you're chasing no more.
No, and things change in life, right? I think, or for us, I think we would still probably live on $100,000 in today. Easy. I know what we live on. I know what our expenses are. Yes, we would be able to live. That's how we live. But I enjoy my work. My wife enjoys her work, and we've made another plan for another 10 years. So, what you think you're going to do with your money 10 years or 15 years or 20 years from then, from when you make a plan, is obviously different. Like, we didn't have children, we're different to other people. But, we set a strategy, we implemented the strategy. Here we are, we're only in our early 40s.
Ooh.
We probably...
I was actually going to ask, this is the only place in the world where it actually asks women their ages.
Okay.
So I was actually going to ask you how old you are.
That's fine. Thank
So
you.
you're only
That's
early 40s.
Yeah, we're early
Oh,
40s. Yeah,
okay, sure.
Yeah, we're early 40s. I am.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Early-ish?
So like
The early part of mid-40s.
right.
Easy. Leave her alone.
We're buddies.
But there's what I'll say is, we started investing in our 30s, in our early 30s. Most people, if they started then, you would have 3 cycles. So, like, we've only done 1 cycle of property cycle. By the time we're 65, if we keep these investments, then it'll be another couple.
Have you got your little capital growth calculator out and put that number in and written 5%,
Every day.
6%, 7%?
Yeah.
I don't do it every day, but when I sit there hating
You're like,
the world, right?
surely this can't be
And
accurate.
I go when I just stuff everything, I'll plug a number of probably the asset value of the properties that I own, which isn't a small number to be fair, and I go, oh,
A bit more motivation.
just got to live a little bit longer, right?
It's
Like,
100%. It's all about. It's just about time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about that. I don't know who I'm going to give it all to when we go. So
Jousting.
that's right.
Some
I think we
jousting
might
with
play a
children.
Hunger Games situation with all the kids in our lives.
If I was you, I'd sell it. I'd just sell everything.
Oh,
Go and live on go and buy one of those rooms on that. What is it? The World, that yacht that travels the
yeah.
world, and spend it all and just eat buffet meals for the next year. That'll
Could be worse.
healthy.
It could be worse. I tell you, it's one thing though that obviously you've known Lena for a long time. I've known Lena for a very long time, and we've been work colleagues for close to a decade now as well, and it's been very tiresome. But there's been some upsides with that as well. I obviously I say it in jest and I joke, but I know Lena, yourself and Lauren. We chatted probably best part of more than a decade ago now, and we talked in depth because Lena's story prior to investing in property was flipping property.
Yep.
And I think that's interesting too, because not only did Lena, you probably be able to share a lot more, but learnt lessons about what it's like buying property, renovating it and selling, and taking that profit and trying to do it again and realising, well, yes, whilst there's money in it, you're essentially buying a job again and a job again and a job again. So you've not only had the ability to figure out how to invest strategically, put yourself into significant debt, run a relatively tight cash flow position to make sure you can hold long term, which also has now led to you being able to hold those assets and buy your forever home, which we'll probably get into in a bit. But you've also had the experience prior to that of buying assets that you can afford, chucking money into it, selling it, taking that profit and going again, which you did successfully. But I think I do distinctly, I think I remember I invited you guys around to my home a good decade ago, maybe a bit more. I think I cooked some average beef cheek from memory as well.
It's a signature dish of yours, isn't it?
Signature dish, there you go. Slow braised with a bit of red wine and whatnot. But I do remember you and I had a pretty heated conversation because you were sort of just going through that process of flipping, and I think you might have only just finished your second property in Potts Point or King's Cross at the time, and you made some money. But I guess we sort of had the discussion and say, well, let's do the numbers and say, if you didn't do that, and if you didn't sell, and if you just held and took the equity out, and I think there was a bit of a moment there, which sort of was a sliding doors moment, which then had you guys shift to not necessarily saying property's a bad idea, property's a great idea, and you made some good inroads. But I think that then led you guys to saying we can probably go harder here, but differently.
Well, it's just important because I imagine you have the same objective to what you had back then, but the strategy and the tactical execution is very, very different. So the objective back then would have been, hey, how do I create wealth so I can have a choice to maybe not have to work all the time, right? Yeah. I reckon you still got the same objective, right? But how you do it is completely different.
I've chosen to work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a choice that we have made probably in the last year.
Yeah.
Like that's not. Yeah, that was a choice.
But it's really funny because, and I know a lot of property investors meet all the time, and they go, like, they get to your position in early 40s, and they go, yeah, we don't need to work anymore. We've actually hit the objective that we originally did, but they've gone, no, now I've got a choice. You speak to anyone who retires at 40, like they're retired for a couple of months, 6 months maybe, like, at best a year, and they start going, this sucks. Yeah. Like, you got no purpose. You wake up every day without a purpose. It's miserable, right? Yeah. Retirement to me is the choice of not having to go to the office one day, right? They're like, but you're always going to, I think people inherently wired, if you're capable and successful and driven, you're probably not going to, and particularly if you're a property investor, you're never retiring, right? You're always going to be doing something. Definitely. You're always going to be doing something.
Yeah. Always
probably the one thing that I've noticed and witnessing it and working with Lena and being a friend as well is that day in, day out, we talk about property. We literally talk about property all day, every day. And when we're not, we're going to watch a footy tonight. You've got some family. I'm going to take some other friends and family. We're going to sit next to each other.
Who's playing?
The Sharks are playing the Dolphins in the NRL for those who are sort of more so based over on the West Coast.
The Dolphins?
The Redcliffe Dolphins, Moreton Bay Peninsula, one of the newer teams, Philip, in some of the areas which you have invested in property.
So this is new for this season?
This is second season, but I think it might be the first time the Sharks actually have played the Dolphins at home.
At Shark Park.
At Shark Park. There you go. We live in Cronulla.
You're going to be in the pure property box at Shark Park?
We don't invest in it. It's a discretionary fringe benefits.
I'll come out there. I'll come out to Cronulla.
Philip, hot tip. Before you say what you're going to say, if there was a box, you'd come. They have just opened at Woolooware Bay. They've just opened a new Chinese restaurant which overlooks Shark Park. And on game night, you can actually get a Lazy Susan table with primo viewing, and you get a full package for $300 a seat.
That's better than a box.
For anyone listening, I'll
tell
you
ScoMo
what,
be there?
If Golden Bay is listening, I want to
one.
make sure you contact Pure Property Investment and say thank you for that free plug, because I was there the other week and I thought that is a fantastic. I would guarantee that ScoMo will, if not has already been there.
We had ScoMo in that very seat
there you
that
go.
You're in only the
Should
other
I feel
week.
privileged?
You should do.
Okay.
Yeah. He still loves the Sharks.
He does love the Sharks. He's still a season ticket holder.
He is still a season ticket holder. So there is.
He'll be there tonight, no doubt.
So what bearing is there at anything of this Chinese restaurant?
To my point, where I was going with this is I guess going back to what you were referring to with Lena about, you get to a point in life where retirement, becomes a choice, but people who do it are miserable and effectively don't do it. Habits is the big one. Mm-hmm. For me, I think you build it, especially if you start investing when you don't have heaps. And when I say heaps, I use that word quite loosely, but I'm saying like we've probably all of us started with very basic means at some stage in life, right? Yeah. None of us were handed this starting point that was very easy to be able to go from $1 million to 10 million. You start with one and you build habits on spending, you build habits on what you enjoy, what you actually want to do with your money. And Lena mentioned that $100,000 a year is still probably what you run 100%. Your life on, because I know exactly, going back to what I was probably alluding to, is I see you every day. We talk very regularly about not just property, but about life and how you're sort of budgeting and those things as well. Your habits are your habits. Like you have a certain amount of money for your travel every year. You still live your life the way you are. I know your wife still drives a 20-year-old car. these are the things. These are the habits. You're a one-car family. Like, these are the things that I'm talking about, where the habits allow you to actually have that choice. And even now that you've made much more means via effective property investment, your habits haven't necessarily changed. And this is the key part, is that if you upgrade your habits, you have to upgrade those goals, and those goalposts just keep getting pushed further and further back. But if you keep those habits somewhat similar, I think you have the ability to have those choices a lot more quickly.
Definitely.
So how did you end up at Pure Property then? Like you talk about this, it sounds like the found, maybe this is a romantic sort of myth now around the origin story of you working in it. So you guys had a hearty debate where Paul was probably pontificating over what all the things that you've done wrong, and knowing you probably responded with gusto, and then did he go, hey, I'm setting up a property thing, you should come and join?
I think what happens, right, with a lot of people who fall into property, we don't have a lot of mentors around us, right? If you don't come from money and you don't come from people who invest, you only ever hear the negative stories about your auntie who bought an off-the-plan in Noosa and it never went up for 20 years. And you hear these terrible stories, right? And like, if any of us who enjoy property and want to be in property, you don't know what you don't know anything until you start speaking to people. You know, we started. I wanted to try to flip properties or have a go at that, and we were doing it in a rising market.
Why did you start doing that? Like we talk about the objective, but why did you go? The best way for me to realise it is flipping properties. Did you watch a TV show?
I think it was The Block.
Yeah, okay.
I swear it was the Block, the Bondi, the Beach.
The block has a lot to be responsible for people making poor property decisions. Is that Channel 9? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Channel 9.
Yeah, if you listen to Channel 9, like,
come on,
you've got
prove
a
us
duty
wrong.
of care.
Prove us wrong.
Get us on the block.
Show some, open the books and show us some real numbers.
We can
we
do
could do a block.
We'll do the block.
We've done the block, and Lena's done the block. But to your point, you've done the block correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sort of those like the first one, the first one I bought, terrible, revolting place in Potts Point, looked like people had
horrible place.
looked like someone had vomited on the walls. Like, it was absolutely terrible, right? Bought it $190,000, sold it for $330,000. I was like, Jesus, here we are. This is how people make money. $120,000 in 8 months. Wow,
Yeah,
here we go.
Easy. Did a reno, obviously.
Yeah, did a reno. Did
And DIY
freshen it up.
reno, right?
DIY
Full
reno.
DIY.
Freshened it up. Yeah, learnt all the things, on YouTube and all that sort of stuff. And then did that again and realised that it was actually the mark. I'd bought well, which is, we buy well first. That's one of the fundamentals. But I bought in a rising market, and I added a bit of value, and I sold it.
Sorry, just on that point, do you reckon you got a negative return on your effort and costs versus the heavy lifting done by the market, or was there the work that you did? Was there a genuine contribution to increasing the value of it?
I would say it was just time, but you're young, right? You're young, and you don't think of your time like that when you're young. You don't think you're happy to come home from work at 5 and do 5 hours of painting or sanding or something like that, because your time is not valuable when we're in our early.
It's such an interesting way, Lena, because I think we've all put our own time into property that we've owned over the years, and I think the way you value your time the older you get is so different now.
Yeah.
Whether it's individually, whether it's as a family, whether it's as a parent, whatever it is, whether it's as a friend.
My wife keeps me in check, right?
Yeah.
She'll just go, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
That's a $50, $40 an hour task, and you're doing it. I go, I
enjoy it. Yeah.
Why are you mowing the lawns? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Like, get someone to do it.
Isn't it funny, Phil? Because I went full circle on that, or 180 rather, but I was paying people to do my lawns for a long time, and moved into my home now a couple of years ago, and I do my lawns, and I do it to probably the same reasons. I actually enjoy it. It's a time where I have nothing in my ears, I have no phone on my hand, and I just sit around and I like creating that, and I did it. No one else did it.
But when it comes to like painting something, I've always got some sort of renovation project, and I'm like, I just don't want to do that.
No,
get
completely. It could be as mundane as it comes. But there's certain things, isn't it? Like gardening for me, I'm all over it. Like now, this day and age, I spend hours potzing around.
I spent 2 hours chopping wood.
Yeah,
on the weekend,
which you probably felt like a man after.
I did. I felt good. I said that's
maybe had a callus or two after.
That's my exercise. But I went, well, that's my exercise done.
Yeah,
like that's proper. That's not like sitting on the treadmill like bludgeon.
Then you chuck it in the pot belly, and then all of a sudden you're creating heat, and there you go.
You know,
Cro-Magnon man.
Yeah. So but again, that's time. That's time well spent, right? So this is the utility of time, and utility of time you can package up in financial return, but the utility of time, cutting your lawns, you package up as the return on your well-being.
Yep.
Chopping wood for 2 hours time. It's
saving on a gym membership.
Saving on a gym membership.
There you go.
Which I like anyone who has a gym membership, and I see them sit there with a sledgehammer hitting a tire. Like, come to my
Bring
house.
to my farm.
Mate,
I've got plenty of things that actually need it using a sledgehammer on instead of just rebounding off a tire.
And I tell you what, and the beer tastes so much better after you do a bit of work. But the utility of the time, so no doubt that's changed. But you're happy to do. You were happy at that point in time to make that investment. You got the upside of it, and because it was, from what I understand, largely successful.
Yep.
You did it again.
Correct. Yeah, I did.
Until I imagine it all went wrong.
Well, no, I did it again, and then we had the conversation, and then made money again, and then had the conversation with Paul, and then we decided to spread what we had out into 2 investments, and we bought 2 Sydney investments.
Whereabouts?
We bought Marrickville, and we bought a Cronulla unit.
I'm sure you've done pretty well out of them.
Yeah, everything's double.
Yeah.
So
what did you pay in Marrickville? Unit?
460,000, 2-bedroom, red brick.
One of those red brick.
Yeah, red brick.
Yeah, no lifts, no nothing.
Correct.
Just,
same with Cronulla, red brick, 400. I want to say 415.
Imagine if you bought 50 of them, 10 of them back then.
Imagine.
That's it's probably a stretch back then, I would imagine.
They were okay. Like we were okay because we had like a cash base, right? So we bought those 2, and then for the next 3 after that, we saved deposits. So we never pulled out equity until our 6th investment, which was really
crazy. A lot of people would tell you, like, I think that's very prudent, personally.
Yes. I probably didn't know that I could pull money out. Also, the Sydney investments still to this day are negative, are still significantly, like they cut into the portfolio.
So have you refinanced those properties in Marrickville and Cronulla subsequent to that?
Cronulla got on the 6th we got the deposit out, so about a bit over 100,000 on the 6th investment. So that's the only one that's ever been topped up to this day. Yeah.
So that Cronulla property is still negative based on the debt you still hold against it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
By how much?
It's about $12,000 or $15,000 a year in
Really?
costs. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's such an interesting one too, though, right? Because you look at that and you compare use Cronulla as an apartment. You get $600-700 a week for an average 2-bedder in Cronulla for rent. But you go out to the western suburbs and speak to another one of our buyers agents in our team, Aaron, who owns a townhouse in Eagleby.
Yeah.
In the southwest of Sydney, and that's talking an hour from Sydney CBD. He's got a 3-bed, 1-bath, old 1970s build townhouse, which he just rented for $600 a week in original condition. So, which I know he bought for circa 210 grand back in the day.
That'd be positive as.
Which then you sort of say, hey, look, you've got this property versus that property. Yes, dollar value, like Lena's property's probably seen relatively similar growth, but the yield on purchase price certainly doesn't correlate, and hence why the story is you can't just keep. You sort of said, imagine you could have bought 100 of those. Yeah, the growth would have been fantastic, but you would have gone broke doing it.
Yeah, and this issue, and also with Cronulla, for example, and sort of visualising what this asset would be, there's only an appetite for certain people to buy that, to rent that stuff to $700, and then they go, it's too much. 2-bedders, couple of punters, tradies, sort of young guys.
It's not even too much. It's affordability and the percentage of what you need to make in order to pay rent of $750 a week.
Yeah.
Like it all comes down to those numbers.
I'd like to see numbers.
Managers.
Maybe something you guys could do is I'd like to see a heat map on on positive cash flow, assuming you've been in the market for 10 years in Sydney, right? Let's just take this. Assume you've been in the market for 10 years. You bought 10 years ago and you haven't refinanced, right?
Yep.
Let's just assume that. I'd like to see a heat map of positive cash flow and
It's
just
a crescent shape,
how
Phil.
weighted it is out.
We've looked at it because, to be honest, we've done it when we did a lot of the I guess the reverse analysis on where it comes. If you picture Sydney as an example, and most capital cities will have something similar. It won't necessarily be the same shape, but if you go from Cronulla to, say, Palm Beach and you follow the entire coastline, which is basically the Sydney CBD catchment, and that's your coastlines, and then obviously it goes to the eastern suburbs. If you think of it, it goes in a reverse crescent. What it does is it then brings in sort of your Bankstown / Marrickville. That's kind of the start where it becomes more affordable. So you've got this arc of coastal and then CBD, and then anything out towards the west and southwest, that's when that actual cash flow gets more and more and more the further out west you go and the further out southwest you go, which is actually really interesting. It's a great point because that is the way it works.
And that's a really interesting point because when it comes to asset selection, you talk about buying the right property. Now, this Potts Point thing sounds pretty good, but if you're talking about long-term wealth creation, yes, you might be able to buy something in Cronulla or Marrickville or
100%.
Potts Point or whatever. It's going to cost you a lot more to hold that, which may stifle your ability to grow a portfolio.
Definitely.
Whereas, we're using Sydney's example, you could draw the same thing. Like I've got properties out in the western suburbs now, which I reckon I've refinanced them twice. I've probably held them for 2 years, probably refinanced them twice, and they're pretty much
Still
neutrally geared.
And you've topped that loan up bolts. I've got the same. I've got properties in those areas which are still not costing anything, but you've topped them up multiple times.
Even with interest rates, it's
Even with interest
6.5%,
rates,
right? And because they sit inside that belt, that curve that you're talking about. So this is really important when it comes to asset selection. So if you want to, and I don't want to have a position on where you should buy more affordable properties, more prestige property, have all of those things in my portfolio. It's horses for courses. But you need to be able to supplement. You need to be able to be pretty confident in your ability to generate income outside of property in order to potentially invest in more expensive properties because they're not going to be as forgiving. And that's probably going to shape most people's investment journey.
And that's obviously then we go on to that where like we bought a Cronulla unit, we bought a Marrickville unit, went to the bank to ask for more money. No. Of course you can't.
You went direct to the bank.
Direct to the bank.
You're mad. You're crazy.
Well, again.
She's speaking with Finny now.
You don't know what you don't know, and if you don't have people around you who are helping you, it's.
Well, you obviously
tough.
weren't listening to the Smart Property Investment Show.
It was a long time. This is probably
Pre-podcast.
11,
This
12 years ago.
This is what I'm waiting for. Like
Thank you,
I've done like well over 1,000 podcasts. And have I got any thanks from anyone? No, I do. I got lots. A golf club.
You get free advice apparently,
I do.
That's gold.
But it's a really important point you make because I'm very conscious that I have accessibility, right? And I utilise that, and it's cool. People always go, "Oh, how do you know so much about property?" Oh, who you must who are your property mentors? I go, well, where do you learn about property? And I go, I don't functionally have any of that, but I'm really good at listening to people, and I'm in a privileged position. I get to listen to a lot of people around property, and because I listen well, I'm able to ask curious questions, which therefore gives me information. So therefore, I've probably done 50 MBAs in property, right? That aggregated, collected, assumed knowledge means that people think I'm a property expert. I'm not, but I probably know a fair bit because I've spoken to a lot of people, right? But that's my paradigm. That is also accessible to everyone else. Like you can listen to podcasts, you can talk to people, you can there's networks and stuff.
Here we are. We have podcasts available. Back 13 years ago, it was SPI the magazine. I love that magazine.
Yeah.
We were all loving that magazine back in the day, and then we were upset when you took it to no paper. But that's fine.
That's okay.
But it's I think podcasts are accessible now. There is so much more information that then you do feel more informed. Yeah, it was difficult.
I'd like to do if I had a time machine. Maybe I'm working on it. But if I had a time machine, I'd like to go back pre-podcast era to the magazine era and then post-magazine era to the podcast era and work out how many people are making dumb mistakes today versus people that are making dumb mistakes 15 years ago. And I'll go out on a limb here. I reckon just as many.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Phil, because I thought you were going to say the opposite. And I was like, please don't say
No.
people making less, because
No.
I have the fortunate and sometimes unfortunate position of speaking to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on an annual basis about their property journey, whether they've got property, no property. But unfortunately, what they've got in their portfolio when they do come to me a lot of the time, if they're a first-time conversation client, that hasn't changed in my
It has to change. I doubt it's changed. And what that comes down to is that I think, people's objectives are correct and they start absorbing themselves in property, yourself included, us at a point in time. The strategy and execution is key. It all comes down to execution. So even though it might even be harder today to be better at property because there is so much. Yep. The collective information and opinions is all encompassing, and the issue you have now is that, you have disinformation in the market, and there's a crap load of misinformation, right? And to be clear on that, disinformation is deliberate, misleading information that people say for a reason or purpose. Misinformation is when people may hear that and think it's accurate and keep propagating it, right? So now you've got this mechanism of the democratization of information is huge. And therefore, people now might be making even more mistakes. At least back in the day, people used to probably invest a little bit more in a bubble or in isolation. Often got it right, sometimes got it wrong, I don't know. Just musing.
No, mate, I
But you see, that's why you guys have a job.
It is.
Really.
It is 100%. That's why we'll probably never be out of a job as long as you keep delivering good, sage advice and do things with a long-term plan in mind that's not going to be risking everything and has a strategy that is appropriate to the person. That's our job. It's
really funny. And again, this could be probably a PhD for someone when you do your doctorate of property or whatever. To actually try and map this, right? So you look at the proliferation of information and how that is accelerating, probably faster than technology is increasing. There's this thing versus the uptake of people using buyer's agents and the number of buyer's agents in the market. And you would think, well, they should actually go the opposite way than what they're doing. More information, people are more informed, therefore less need for buyer's agents. Yeah. What is happening is that there's more information, people are more informed, but they're using people to do it for them. So you sit and go, well, that doesn't sort of make sense.
Well, it's funny though, but you could draw the same conclusion with sales agents, right? Like if you look at the other side of the ledger of a property transaction, there's nothing stopping people from selling a property themselves.
Yeah, you got for sale by owner platforms all over the joint these
they're
days.
Left, right and centre. And there's been a few who have tried really hard to penetrate the Australian market a number of years ago and failed.
But do you know the reason why?
Tell me.
Tom Panos.
2 words.
he won't let anyone not use it.
but I mean,
I know Tom well, but guys like him, because he's a voice of influence.
But he also is a realist, right? Like he understands that if you're selling something, you're not selling something a widget for $5. You are selling something, and the difference between $450,000 and $480,000 for the vendor is a lot of money. Yes, you pay $20,000 in commission to achieve the better outcome than the former, but that is the way that it works. And our job is the same, where people, unfortunately, when you're buying property, it is a huge financial investment, whether it's a entry-level $300,000 property or your forever home at $3 million. It's still going to be a huge amount. And if you're buying it or selling it, you realistically, you should have some help on both those sides.
And look at both sides of the ledger, right? I don't know any seller, unless they're up to something, right? I don't know any seller that doesn't want the maximum price for their property.
Correct.
And I don't know any buyer that wants to overpay for their property.
Correct.
And this is the market, right? This sort of meets in the middle and got guys and girls like you in the middle doing what you do, right? And that is the point. Even though people are more informed than ever before, they need the professionals to actually get the deal done. Otherwise, it won't happen. But a lot of people do it by themselves. There's still most real estate transactions for property investors still happen. Nearly all, probably still happen without buyer's agent. You've got to remember, because you work within the ecosystem, you think everyone's using it. No, they're not.
No,
they're not.
No, they're not. And we see it every day because.
But you're like the $5 haircut fixers, the old story.
This is it, right?
Yeah.
And that's ultimately. But I guess the reason why we know, because the beauty of what we do, and we're buying in multiple markets right now, and Lena can attest to probably 5 dozen suburbs that we're buying in as we speak across probably 3 or maybe even 4 separate states, is that we have to look at comparables day in, day out. We look at what properties are sold. We look at what properties under a contract, and we look at certain properties are like, how the hell did that price get achieved? And you realise that. I mean, I won't divulge specifically, but we had one of our buyer's agents, again, who bought a property 2 years ago in a market, actually just sold his property, an investment, because he's trying to upgrade to buy a commercial asset at the moment. Just sold to another buyer's agent via a sales agent, by the way, not directly through the buyer's agent. So listed the property, got the best offer on the property, which was about 250 grand profit over a 2-year period of time.
Capital growth. Probably.
Capital growth on, and raw percentage was about 50, 60% over a 2-year period of time, a good return, but needed the money to free up some borrowing capacity. Sold to another buyer's agent based on the East Coast. The sales agent, who we know very well, told Aaron, who was the client, to say, hey, look, the property sold to a buyer's agent. We've got an offer from a buyer's agent. They're buying it for a doctor. No one's seen the property. And he's saying, fantastic. Jack up the price, got into a bidding war. The buyer's agent paid more than anyone else. That's some part of the ledger where we're like, well, it still doesn't show that just because you employ a buyer's agent that they get the best result either. You've got to make sure you compare. And that's the point.
Yeah, you got to get what we got to compare the and I always get to, I'm pro professional. I'm pro.
Yep.
You use the right person, doctor. You don't do a backyard operation. You get the right quack in to do it, right? So, accountants, mortgage brokers, all that stuff. It's all the same, right? But there's so many buyer's agents out there right now, and I often have the debate here with my colleagues, which is, how do you know your buyer's agent is any good? Like this is the fundamental question. Like, we rank and rate real estate agents in Australia, and they're really, really easy to rank and rate, because real estate agents are professionals, and the success in real estate, outside of like helping clients and all that sort of stuff, the measure of being a successful real estate agent is how much money you make.
Yeah.
We do that big REB list, and Alexander Phillips, he does about $1 billion in sales, and it's really easy to work out how much money that guy makes, right?
Yep.
So who is the best real estate agent? You ask any real estate agent, it's whoever makes the most money, right?
Yeah.
It runs absolutely counter-cyclical for buyer's agents.
Absolutely.
Right? So how do you know if your buyer's agent buys more property than anyone else, are they really the best buyer's agent in Australia? And I have this debate all the time.
Absolutely.
And it's still really grey, and it's still such a
do they charge a percentage?
an
Do they charge
industry
a
in
flat
its
fee?
infancy that it's really hard to quantify. Now, you could say, because my buyer's agent buys more properties than anyone else, that means they're a really, really good buyer's agent. Now, you could argue that there is method to that, right? You could say, if they're really good at buying properties, that must mean that they're able to access markets that other people can't. It means they're getting stuff before markets. It means they've got a really good off-market capability, blah, 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 right? But if they're overpaying for those properties, are they a good buyer's agent? And I'll put it to you guys, like, it's really hard to work out. It's really, really hard to work out. How do you know your buyer's agent's good?
But I'm biased in how we say this, though, because, this is the challenge that we face, not only to beat our chest to say we're better than anyone, but this is the challenge we have from our clients.
Do you think you're the best?
Of course we do. But I say
it's
that.
like asking a fighter pilot, who's the best fighter pilot?
Yeah,
They're going to go,
mate,
right?
I was going to say, I can spot a better buy. My team can spot a better buy than anyone else. But I guess the reality is that you have to also face this challenge from our clients, because we have pressure from our buyers who also don't want to sit there for 4 months waiting for that better buy. And, there's mechanisms that force us to have to get a purchase. Now, it's not necessarily just, are we waiting for something that's coming? If you're buying in a market, i.e. Perth, that's growing at 20, 25% annualized, is buying a property at advertised price when comparable sales from 2 months ago sold at the same price, is that a good buy? Well, it probably is a really good buy right now, versus if you're buying in Melbourne at a price which might be 20 grand below asking and 20 grand below what properties were selling for 2 months ago. That might be the definition of a good buy. Is a buy off market better than a buy at auction right now? Depends on which market. So there's so many, like, to your point, Phil, there's no distinct way that I'd say for me, it's the long-term compounding growth effect that we get for our assets, which I can only measure in retrospect.
Well, a good buyer's agent might be, Lena, where they go, there's very, very little products in the market because everyone wants them right now. I'm actually able to get this. You might be paying a little bit over on it.
Yep.
However, if you wait another 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you're not going to realise that capital growth. So it's going to erode any of the overpayment of it. And you're in the game, it means you can ride the market for a longer period of time. Yep. I would say that's probably smart counsel at times, right? Buyers are being conditioned now that prices need to be cheap. I need to get it under market. I need it under market. And buyers agents, in many ways, are potentially some buyers agents, the cohort of them, got to be really, really careful, because if they set out their proposition that we will help you get markets under market, we'll get your properties under markets, That's not a sustainable USP.
No, and it's not realistic, nor is it really. I mean, it's a bit of a furphy, if I'm honest, because it's under market value. Market value, we can debate this all the time. What is market value? Market value is what you pay for a property. If a property gets valued above what you paid for it, yeah, maybe technically that's under market value. I can guarantee that. I look at valuations on a day in, day out basis, official bank valuations on properties that we buy. You'll get 1 in 100 that might be under actual bank valuation for finance.
Bank's always going to value it for the,
of course,
the price.
and that's usually because someone's made an error on the valuation. That's the only reason that happens. So under market value, we never talk about that term because for us that's a misnomer. The reality is getting an outcome for a client at a particular point in time, and I guess we've sort of gone a long way around there for where Lena's at, and talking about her portfolio in the sense that strategically buying 2 properties in Sydney and saving cash to then buy assets in Queensland. Is kind of where you intentionally made sure that you could hold assets that have been bought at the correct time, have seen growth, but you knew full well that cash flow wasn't going to be sustainable if you dragged equity out of those and bought again. And this is where it comes down to that paradigm that everyone's position is different, and you have to set that strategy that's going to be realistic.
You've got to set the strategy, but you've got to own the strategy. It sounds like you guys importantly have done that, right?
We set the strategy, we implemented the strategy, we ticked it off. I'm a process-driven person. We made a plan, we did it. I think if everyone did that, if everyone made a plan and completed it, then maybe you'd be out of the job. But for podcasts, it is like we have conversations with clients who I do a big batch of Paul obviously has conversations with clients, every 6 and 12 months. I send valuations to clients that haven't been in contact in a couple of years. Now, I do that at the end of the year. Every valuation I send out has at least 40% growth for 2-3 years, 3 years plus. Trying to have those conversations with clients to bring them back to, we talked years ago. We talked about that you wanted $2.5 million worth of assets to give you $100,000 to $150,000 in retirement. You're only 1 or 2 in. Come on, let's try to keep this going. You can see the outcome. You can see what we've achieved. We have to continue the process, or else what people set them, they just don't. They're just.
It's an execution thing.
It's 100%.
And this comes back to
it's tough to watch.
It's tough to watch, but what makes a good buyer's agent, I would say, it's very much this, the keeping people accountable. It's like a coach, right?
100%.
You told me you wanted to do this.
Yep.
We've got you on the way. I'm trying to help you out.
100%.
You said you wanted to do something. Well, why aren't you doing it? Oh, well, this. Okay, what are you going to do about it? It's some people just need a coach.
Yeah.
And accountability coach.
And mentorship. Exactly right. And I think, like obviously Paul has, our clients, it's part of the free strategy that, they have a meeting they get a free meeting every single year. Paul talks with them about valuations, the rentals. I have a lot of clients that come back, ask me for rental amounts. That is part of the ongoing support. So if you want to quantify a good buyer's agent, we give you a service during a property acquisition, but it's the ongoing coach support, that we give you throughout the year and the years to come to try to bring you back to that strategy. Let's get back there.
Yeah. How many people say, "Oh, I don't want to talk to you, go away," that you've bought for in the past?
I don't think anyone says that to me.
No.
Like,
leave me alone.
No, but like
a telesales.
No,
most of the time they're proactively reaching out to us, 100%. If I'm completely honest with you. But I mean, what we don't, our job's not to say, hey, come back and let's buy another property. Yeah. That's the furthest thing from the conversation that we're having. I mean, half the time, if we're setting a strategy, I can think of a client I spoke to about 2 hours ago. We look at it, they've got a first property they own in Balmain. They're a recent graduate doctor. They're working as a locum. I think they're based up in the North Coast at the moment. So they've got another 1.5 years as a locum, right? Here's the scenario where they bought a property 4 years ago in Balmain. They bought it for 1.2, it's now worth 1.6. They've got $1 million debt on this asset. They earn good money and they've been ready to buy for 2 years. Now, I chatted to him 2 years ago, and at that time, life got busy and he was finishing off his exams and since graduated, et cetera, et cetera. Came back, had this conversation again this morning, say what's been happening is like not much. And I go back to the notes we had out of that meeting. That meeting was, hey, we've got borrowing capacity. We had loan approved, ready to go for a $400,000 to $600,000 purchase as that second purchase as part of this portfolio. We outlined about half a dozen different suburbs. Looking back on those suburbs 2 years ago, they've probably done 20 to 40% growth depending on which suburb. Now, that's lost, right? We can't ever get that back. That's fine. The conversation is a little bit frank to say, look, we've seen what could have happened. We haven't done that. Your position is, if anything, you've got more borrowing capacity, you've got more cash in the bank, but your overall net worth hasn't changed. You're basically sitting here dormant when you could have done so much. Now, we can have this same conversation next year. We can have the same conversation the year after that. Or we can have the conversation today, let's get moving. And ideally next year we have a conversation and say, that property's now done this, let's move to property number 3. Ultimately, his objective, he's mid-30s. He's in a really good position to be probably in a financial secure life by age 50 without a given shadow of a doubt. But if he lets 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years pass by doing nothing, that time will push from 50 to 60 to 70.
I would say to that guy, bring out your compounding growth calculator and work out the impact of 5 years.
And the loss growth over the last 2 years alone is enough to scare you to think, geez, I've got to do something. So I guess the outcome of that was 2 hours ago. We've sent a summary. He's engaged us now. We're rolling. So we're, as of literally about half an hour ago, just before we went on air, we're rolling, we're starting. But it sometimes takes that little nudge, and people need to see in retrospect what I could have done or should have done. Yeah. Lena's journey and her point is that once you agree to the strategy, yes, you need to hold yourselves accountable, because if you can't hold yourself accountable, you can't rely on other people to do it. But our job is to poke and prod where need be as a personal trainer.
You need a bit of a safety net, right? Like
Absolutely.
You want people to be proactive and get it done, but maybe people get busy, right? Or
they do.
Things change and
they
stuff
do.
to actually have that. So you've been a buyer's agent now for 8 years.
Yep, 8 years.
How many years are you going to be a buyer's agent, do you reckon?
I think I'll always be in property. I'll always do something with property.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've got a couple of the investments are developable. So,
okay.
I always thought, if I ever retire, then that'll keep me busy for a few years at least. But yeah, I bought.
Where in Queensland are you?
I got 2 in Moreton Bay. I got 2 in West Brisbane.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Cool.
I mean, obviously I would have liked more properties in the journey that we took from Hobart to Perth, but at the time I could get the finance, and that's where we were buying. Now, I don't regret not having assets in the other states that we're in, because I don't know if we would have been able to finance at those different stages, whether it be 2 years ago or 4 years ago when we sort of started the infancy of Perth, or even when we were in Hobart. I don't know if I would have been able to finance, because when you can get finance, you get finance, and then you buy. And you buy when you can. And if you do that, then it's the longest time in the market. If you wait thinking, oh yeah, I'll get finance, I'll be able to get finance next year, or in a couple of years I'll buy another property. You buy when you can and when the finance is available, because that'll always be the thing that stops you from getting to your goal, is the finance. Always. The handbrake.
Well said. So what's going to happen?
I reckon Lena do well with Tom Panos, them back and forth going at it. They're both very...
Maybe. Maybe.
They'd shout at each other like no one's business.
I don't shout at enough people.
What's it like working over at Pure Property? Like, you guys all get on well? Yes.
Oh yeah, we're all good. Like I like Paul and I sit in different offices these days because I'm too loud and I swear. I swear at agents and we have that banter and we swear, and but I can't be next to Paul doing that. So we don't have that. We don't have that life anymore. We went for Chinese today, which we hadn't done that for years.
There's a new place around the corner here. They do old school Bay Marie. Just go in there, bam, in and out.
Where?
It's called Bangkok something.
Okay.
That's not the actual name, by the way.
Bay Marie.
But the suite of Bay Maries, you get the small or the large dish.
Well, you choose
I spent a lot of money, by the way.
So you load it up so you get a pile of...
Two choices with rice or noodles, or 3 choices with the rice or noodles.
Yeah, I don't know about
Just
this
open
place.
up. It's maybe above Yellow Brick Road, where it used to be, just near there. Around the corner. Yeah, you'll find it. You'll find it. You'll enjoy it. You use your Westy senses. You'll find it. I don't even need to tell you where it is. You will track it down.
Yeah, I do like a Chinese meal. But well, it's good to actually have a chat with you again. The last time you were on a podcast 10 years ago.
10 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
10 years, and in that time, you've built the portfolio.
It's doubled in value.
Doubled in value, bought your forever home, about to settle on that.
Is it really a forever home?
I'll never say forever.
It will be a long time home for you, knowing how you operate.
I don't believe in a forever home. I hate the idea and the concept of forever home.
Nothing's forever.
You know what the best thing about it is? It has AstroTurf in the backyard next to the pool, right? So I can go to Europe in the sunshine for a couple of months in the middle of winter. No problems.
A pool? That's a bit fancy.
It's a small pool, very small.
Pool.
I would call
Is
it.
that why you bought it? That AstroTurf?
Yeah, 100%.
One of the reasons I was like, this is it.
Loves it. Loves it.
This is
And
it.
SMSF is the
Low
next cab off the rank.
All right.
So obviously we've been saving, we haven't invested for 6 years. There was a lot of cash. We'd saved a fair bit of money in the bank.
That was the idea to buy this fancy joint.
The idea was to get married, but then COVID happened,
Correct.
and that stopped that. So then when you see the $100,000 that you'd save for the wedding in the bank account, you're like, against the offset. It's one of the offsets, and you're like, geez, all right, I think it's probably better leaving that in the bank account. And then we just kept on living, and life's been fantastic, Do
you think you've been lucky?
As in with the investment journey?
Do you think you've been lucky?
Lee Trevino. The more I practice, the luckier I get.
I think that I don't know. I don't know if I've been lucky.
I don't think she has. I think Lena's story is one of what anyone could achieve, and I think luck is literally she's made it.
Yeah, no, it's just anyone who's talking to anyone ever, ask them that question. You see how they respond to it. It's really, really interesting way.
And I reckon probably the way that would be thought about by the person who's asking is if the person who's asking is someone who hasn't invested in property and has probably been thinking about it for a decade or so prior and hasn't done anything, they'll probably have the assumption that you're just lucky.
Yeah.
As opposed to property investor talking to property investor who's been doing it for a while saying, good on you.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah. You think you've been lucky?
No, I sweated it out.
The market's helped.
Yeah, absolutely. I sanded walls. I saved. I didn't go on that trip. I made sure I budgeted correctly. I own one car that I've had for 20 years. I don't buy the second car. All these things that just go with, that's what luck is. That's where the luck's created.
Yeah. I mean, life is good. I keep on saying that we're in our midlife crisis years, right? Where our friends, they all have kids. They've got another 10, 15 years of the treasury because
Is that what being a parent is?
Like you work for your kids now, right? Like you work for your kids, right? You guys work for your kids. That's what
I don't put it that way to them. I make sure they don't think I work for them.
They're in charge of you.
I am their master. 100%.
They're in charge. And I think we are in a really good point in our life where now we've taken up hobbies that you take up in your midlife crisis because life is good. Everything's.
What are your hobbies?
I'm hiking, so I'm overnight and through hiking, and my wife is surfing
with a little backpack on.
There's no little; it's a big backpack. Yeah.
By yourself into the bush.
No. We have a hiking group. We do overnight hikes and things
and your
like
wife,
that.
So she's surfing now, is she?
My wife is surfing.
Loz Dog is surfing. Yeah.
How's she going?
She's there. Shuckers every day.
Really cool. She out every day, is she?
No, I wouldn't say every day, but she power to her. Learning to surf if you haven't surfed as a grommet growing up, trying to do it in a later age is not an easy thing to do.
No.
One of the hardest sports, full stop.
Yeah.
Full stop, but then trying to learn it when you haven't done it at a younger age and not being that confident in the ocean, it's probably tripled down how hard it is. So good on her, power to her. And afforded. She affords to do it because she's got time and doesn't have the pressure of finances.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah, well, to echo, it's a Tom Panos podcast. He would say, make your passion your paycheck. And it sounds like that's what you've done.
I've been doing that for a long time. I enjoy my work, So that's why we're continuing to work because I really enjoy my work and Lauren enjoys her work as well.
So, do more people call up Pure Property these days and say they want you to be their buyer's agent rather than Paul Glossop?
I would say that most like clients that come back to us will just email me directly and ask to come back on the books.
Yeah, that's good.
And then we just have conversations. But like again, there is so many clients come back to me to ask about rental amounts and advice on things over the years. So there is that relationship that
pretty organic.
Correct, very, and it's very easy. They come back, just have a chat with Paul. Just double check a couple of things, double check the strategy, and then, as soon as you the strategy set, then I'll brief the team and we'll go from there.
So you're okay if people don't want to work with you and they just want to work directly with Lena?
Well, you're insinuating that people bypass me. Look, to be fair, I am. I realise I'm not everyone's cup of tea.
We're all different.
Understanding your faults is key.
Yeah. Paul's an easy one to read. Just take him for a Chinese dinner.
Not too often. I've got to keep the gene size similar. Yeah, exactly.
No, there is healthy Chinese.
There is.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I don't know where it is, but I'm sure there is.
I bet it doesn't taste as good as good Chinese.
No, you're better off just not going there.
I had a good Chinese last Friday.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, honey chicken was on the menu.
No.
Salt and pepper something.
There's a salt and pepper squid. I do like a Chinese omelette.
You and I are partial to omelette.
Yeah.
I find a Chinese omelet's
Without
a good
the
option.
rice,
But
yeah.
they are, Chinese omelette is fried after all. That's how they do get it flashed up. It's in the wok.
Yeah, everything's in the wok.
Everything, yeah. And it doesn't cook organically in the wok. It does need a little helping hand with some vegetable oil.
Yeah, vegetable oil is good for you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
in moderation.
Healthy, but much like investing in your property journey,
There's vegetable oil in everything.
There's vegetable oil in everything. Well, thanks for coming in.
That's
good
right.
To see you.
Thanks for having me.
No.
Yeah.
What do people do if they want to have a yarn with you guys? What's the best way to?
Oh, they can email Lena directly.
Yes.
No, probably won't. Yeah.
1-800-10-do-it-properly. Yeah.
No, they can email inquiry@purepropertyinvestment.com or go to our website purepropertyinvestment.com. On the socials. I think this is on YouTube these days.
It's on
too.
the YouTube.
So we've got our own YouTube channel. I know SBI have got their own YouTube channel as well, so they can catch up on this stuff. But to get in touch with us directly, purepropertyinvestment.com, they can inquire now or inquire at purepropertyinvestment.com and start the journey. Start it now and stop listening to these stories that shoulda, coulda, woulda and be the person.
Yeah. Give up podcasting, start doing.
Start doing.
Just get
Or
it
ideally do both.
Do both simultaneously. All right. Well, thanks, gang. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for making all the effort that come from all the way from Cronulla.
Yeah, it is a long way. We've got to cross a few bridges to get back, get the passport stamped, get ready for the game tonight.
You do. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Go
It's
to
got to be
Sharkies.
cold
Go to
at Shark
Sharkies,
Park.
yeah.
Got to be cold.
It will be.
Are you going to be in the undercover area?
We shan't be. We're in the elements. We like it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep it real.
All right. Pie, sausage rolls,
All of the above.
chips,
Yep. Light beer.
light beer. They don't serve full strength there.
They do serve full strength. I keep
Okay.
it light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just to keep it
good.
Keep
All
the
right.
calories down.
Well, let's
More pies, less beers.
Let's hope that the Dolphins win one of their first games.
What are you talking about?
Everyone hates Cronulla, don't
Oh God! You can end the podcast here.
they?
End it
maybe.
here.
I'll come back in another 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then what's going to happen?
Well,
But tell me in 10 years' time.
Oh.
I don't know.
Give me three
Nostradamus.
things. Yeah, three
hopefully
identifying
we would have done another
points.
cycle and everything would be doubled and the fancy house will be double as well as the investments. Cool. And I'll have self-managed super investments as well. So,
That's not much
maybe
of a prediction.
maybe I'll be sick of Paul by that stage. Maybe it won't.
You'd hope
Well,
so.
you don't think it'd be the other way around?
You'd hope so. There you go.
The door swings both ways.
Correct.
That's, Lena Lindley is a senior buyer's agent at Pure Property Investment. Thanks for coming in. Paul Glossop, director at Pure Property. Thanks, guys. There's heaps of other episodes. If you like what we're doing here, go and tune into them on the interweb and or wherever you get your podcasts. So we'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.